It is Friday morning. I am feeling really good this morning, and I hope you are too. Thank you so much for being here. If you don't know, my name is Zenovia Harris. I have the pleasure of serving as the CEO for the Kent Chamber of Commerce for the last 6 years here in the city of Kent. This event is something that myself and my team, we have kind of been dreaming about, year after year, to be able to celebrate women in this space. And we decided to, this year, name the event Giving Women Their Flowers. I think it's very important for myself, for my staff, and for you all to know that it doesn't matter what your title is. You are a woman, you are strong, you are innovative, you are all of those things, and you should be celebrated at all times. And so with that being said, I want to bring up the people who make me look good, because a lot of people are like, Zenovia, you did a good job. No, I didn't. My team did a really good job. So I want to bring up my team: Madoka, Taylor, Kat, Destiny. Come on, Paul. Everybody, come on. Clap them up. For the new leaders in the room, this is what it looks like to give space. This is what it looks like to give credit where credit is due. And I just want to take time to recognize the hard work that you all put in to make this event happen, to coordinate it. You all are very special, and you put your heart into this. And so I just want to say thank you from the bottom of my heart. I know I'm difficult, and I know I'm difficult at 8 o'clock at night. So I sure appreciate you guys for everything that you do, but I also want you to sit and enjoy the moment and enjoy and pick up whatever nuggets that we can give to you today. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Awesome, thank you, Taylor. I have the pleasure to introduce our keynote speaker for today. I would like for you to help me welcome Teresa Noonan to the stage.
So I brought this sign with me because this is a huge part of my message. And I want to make sure that you see this. One of my secret keepers that's been my best friend since 7th grade sent this to me because she knows how powerful women are. Can you all see that? Okay, I'm going to tell you what it says. I am a woman. What's your superpower? Right, ladies? Let me tell you, and I'm going to remind you, and I want you to let this sit in you. Look around this room at every human being here and everything you can see. Everything. Every good idea, every powerful statement, every brick and mortar of this building, everything has been birthed through a woman. For all ages, since women have birthed anything. Even when it's a man's idea, that was birthed through a woman. Let's never forget our power, ever, and never let it be silenced. So when I speak in really strong terms, and I get a little bossy, because it's so important. I brought my notes up here because I want to make sure I don't forget to say some things to you that I think are going to be really meaningful. But I want to kick this off because I feel all of your power. It's so electric in here. When I got to walk around and talk to people and talk to the booth people, it was amazing. So I want to just pause and have every one of you look at a woman at your table, and the men do this too, it's super important, and tell that woman, I see your power. Let's just take a minute and do that. I want to hear some chatter. Say it. Don't let one woman be left without that message this morning. It's true. All the time. I'm hearing all the time. I love that all the time. Yes. So Eleanor Roosevelt says, and these are the words I live by, and I had to do the thing. The first thing I had to do was right when I was coming out of my 20s and put a period on it when I turned 30. She says, you must do the thing that you think you cannot do. When I was 24, I met a man, and we married quickly after that. Unfortunately, yes? You can't hear me? Can you all hear me? Okay. I what?
Your mic in and out. Your badge is stuck.
Okay, that's it. It's in and out. Yeah, we need to change mics. What about this one?
Like, right here, doing some raining. See, just try to speak.
How about this one? Yeah. Woohoo! Here we are. All right. I have the power. It's true. So Eleanor Roosevelt said, "You must do the thing you think you cannot do." So when I was 24, I met a man. He was cute, but he was dumb. I mean, it's true. Quickly after that, we got married, and he started his domestic abuse. And first it was doors, then it was walls, then it was pinning me up the wall against the wall and slamming the wall right next to my head, and then it was pushing me around. So I kept my secret because I was ashamed. That shame belonged to him, it did not belong to me. So I had a baby, got me pregnant, had a baby. At 28 years old, my baby wasn't quite one, and I decided that was that. I'd had it. So I started secretly hatching a plan on how I was leaving this man and taking the baby with me. So we lived in Seattle, and we had moved here from Anchorage, Alaska. I actually organized our jobs to get him a job and me a job and move us back to Alaska where my family was, because I wasn't leaving him with my infant without family around me. So I did that and contacted a local law office and said, "I don't really have any money, but I need your help. And I'll do anything. I'll do your paperwork, I'll do your filing, I'll pay you a little bit, and I'll work off the rest if you'll put me on a payment plan, because I need help." So he didn't know any of this. And one night he came home about 10 o'clock. My car was packed. The baby was in the car seat in the back seat. My mom left the door unlocked, and I told him I'm leaving. It escalated from there. I had to get a restraining order. He was stalking me. He was meeting me at my work in the parking lot when it was dark. And I had to call the police and basically took him to court. I wrote copious notes. I got an investigator involved. I got a doctor involved because there was damage, there was human collateral. And he wanted to know why I was doing this to him. Well, if any of you feel a fire in your belly from me telling you this story, then you know what I'm talking about. Statistics say 1 in 4 women experience some sort of domestic abuse in their lifetime. And that's just not right. And there is a way out. And I'm just gonna say, Eleanor Roosevelt is right. We are not given a spirit of fear. We are given a spirit of power and self-control. And in that self-control does not mean we need to meet that mean man where he stands. It means we need to gather our resources and take him out. So he had to serve his sentence because he was at fault. And I went to court and I got my lawyer, and I had people that didn't believe me because I'd kept my secret for so long, and I didn't need them to believe me because I knew what had happened. And so I got full custody, he got time, and I left Alaska and took my son because he was not gonna raise him to be another man just like him. I was gonna raise him to be a man that respected women. And that's who he is today at 32 years old. That young man respects women, and he actually tells our story to people and talks about the strength of his mother and that every woman should stand up for themselves and their children and anybody else that's being marginalized in their life. So I just want you to know that you have the power in you to stand up for yourself, or if you see something, say something, and support another woman who needs help. Can you all promise me that you'll do that for yourselves and others? Please, let's talk about this. This is so important, and I'll tell you, the reason someone wants us silenced is because they know we are powerful, and they want to steal our power, and our power is not up for robbery. So after that, I moved back to Seattle. I left him in Alaska where he belonged. Telling you, he can be there. And I started my career. And I took that will to fight and not be silenced into the corporate world. And that's exactly what I needed to survive what happens in the corporate world, especially to women. I'm not saying we're victims. I'm just saying that we have to work harder, and we have to sit at the table and ask for that seat because it's not given to us in a multitude of ways. And I'm going to give you some examples because I worked 32 years in corporate America and made a decision to leave. And I'll tell you about that too. So as I started my career, I went to work for a smaller division that was considered ancillary to the larger corporation. And my boss was best friends with our vice president. Things were great for like the first year, but I also had a voice, I had great ideas, and I was gonna make sure that I took up my space and I wasn't silenced. And my boss, and as much as I partnered with him and didn't humiliate him, he was not having it. So one night, we were working late, he left and thought the office was cleared out and came back in about a half an hour later. I don't know where he went in that half an hour, but I was at my desk working away. He thought everybody was gone, and so did I. And he came to me and leaned in and said, "Sometimes you make me want to slap you in the face." My boss at work in a corporation. And I was not scared because I had been up against men like this before, and I thought, go ahead. I didn't say it, I just looked at him, and I looked at him defiantly, but I did not speak back because I thought, I'm not going to go toe-to-toe with you right here. So he left. A woman emerged from another office. Her door was open and my door was open, and she heard that. And she came around to the front of my office and she said, "I heard every word of that. And if you need someone to go with you, I'm going with you." So I said, "Okay, well, I'm going in the morning and I'll let you know if I need you." So the next morning I came in and I went to our executive of that division, who happened to be his best friend, and told him what happened and said, "And I have a witness, so if you want me to bring her in, I'd be happy to, or you can take my word for it." He took my word for it, rallied the forces, that man was out, and he was fired that day. Yeah, and he deserved it. I didn't deserve to be talked to like that. Nobody does. So fast forward a few more years, I got assigned to a committee because I was contributing good work, and there was a woman executive that led that committee. She was in a much larger division, and she went to that vice president of my ancillary division and said, "I want to talk to Teresa about an opening I have, and I would like her to onboard her in my division." And so I talked to him, she called me, I talked to him, I gave 2 weeks notice, and I moved to that division. I started to really run and flourish under her leadership. She was amazing. She put me on several committees. She was a crack up. She taught me how to public speak. She would take me in this closet and she'd say, "Okay, show me." I'd show her and I'd do it, and she'd take it out of my hands and she'd be like, "No, do it again." I'd say, "Okay, I'll do it again." And over and over and over, because she wanted to be sure that when I went out there, that I showed my best self. She saw something in me that I didn't see in myself. And when I went to the Seattle University through the Executive Leadership Program, it's a part of an MBA, they taught us that a mentor sees us as we can be, and it's something we can't yet see in ourselves. And this is why mentorship is so important. Through working for her in this division, I got involved in this women's journeys networking system for the company and became a mentor to up-and-coming women who needed to see themselves through the eyes of other people so that they would gain their power. That was part of my most rewarding work. In this division, I was contributing such good work and being recognized for that work that one day my vice president pulled me into her office and it was mid-year and said, we want to present you with another raise. I know we gave you a raise at the beginning of the year, but we want to give you another raise mid-year. She said, in all my years being with this company, I've never seen this happen before. So I was very proud of that. I was very proud of my team for supporting the work that we were trying to accomplish together. And I was very proud of her for advocating. She was the only woman on the executive team in this division, and she was advocating for another woman. The advocacy of a woman to a woman speaks volumes to that woman and every woman who witnesses that. And every man that witnesses that, it starts breaking down barriers. It starts breaking down perspectives. It starts breaking down the way people are seen and heard. And through that, she actually made a big deal about it, and she told the whole floor. And I know that she did that to motivate the whole floor, which is her entire team, but she also wanted to start breaking down us and them. She had been there and run that gauntlet herself, and she didn't want those barriers to exist. And she did a fantastic job of that, a fantastic example to me. Because my next step was a woman in an even larger division had an opening, and she reminded that executive committee that I was downstairs, that they could tap me if they wanted me to bring me upstairs. So I was now in a division, and so they did. They called me and said, come up for an interview, and I got the job. And now I had a global presence. This job now took me to the upstairs of the headquarters in a global presence. And so I got a much larger team with significantly more responsibilities. And over time, the company started sending me around to all the international regions to talk about the processes and the mores and norms of the company and how we went to market. And I expanded my mentoring to many more women. One thing that was so cool out of this too was one of my mentees came up with a capstone project, and she gave it to the board at the culmination of the mentorship program every year. She wanted to do a roundtable mentorship program where all the mentees run the show, and there's only 2 mentors at the table, 8 to 12 mentees. They pick their own topics, and they study the topics, and they present it, and they teach the room. It was so empowering. I was very proud of her. At first it was a pilot, and then it spread around the company, and then the CEO got wind of it and took hold of it, and she just rose through the ranks too because of her courage to speak up and say, I think all of us need to be able to lead. So important. So through this work, again, my team was so strong, and I was really getting my leadership chops. I was feeling just on fire every day when I would come to work. Part of my compensation was salary, bonus, and RSUs, which are stock options, kind of. This particular year, they gave me a second set of RSUs mid-year because of the exemplary work my entire team was doing. I was one of the leaders that would share back the financial benefits that I got for the work I did, and I would give each one of my employees, based on the merit of their work, a small amount of money too. I didn't just keep it for myself, which I could have easily done, but I didn't, because I wanted them to know what it was like to earn more for working hard and galvanizing as a team, so that they would be interested in being promoted too and contributing more to the mission, because we were all there as employees, I mean, quite frankly. So fast forward from there, we decide that we're going to centralize this department. Now it's going to become the first $1 billion department in the entire company. And I'm part of the team. They open up a position and I interview for it and I get it. So now I become one of 3 leaders leading the entire mission for the company to do this. Took us about 3 years to accomplish it, but we did. And we grew the business double digits. Very exciting. So all of this time, my whole garden is blooming and I'm just super excited and I can see wildflowers everywhere. Then I get transferred to another department in the same division because they needed to reorg. And there was a male leader in that division. I laugh, not because it's funny, but because sometimes people can be so small. And he immediately started trying to tear me down, shut me up, minimize me, because he wanted to be promoted and there was no way that he was gonna let me shine at all, which he didn't realize would have made him shine exponentially. I mean, how small-minded. So every day, at the end of the day, he would berate me for any misgivings I did because I'm not a perfect human being. He'd have a laundry list. There was no building me up. There was only tearing me down. So this persisted for about a year, and I didn't take this out on my employees. I would just go home and talk to the Lord and figure it out. So this went on for about a year, and then one Thursday, after COVID hit, things were so uncertain in the world and at work. I mean, it was just super shaky, and we all know that. We all experienced that. It's now April, and COVID's in full bloom. And so I went home and talked to my husband, and he had supported me through our whole marriage, which was my second marriage by then, to go as far as the sky would let me fly. And so we decided that I was gonna off-ramp and he was gonna ramp up. And so I went in the next day and tendered my resignation and took 2 weeks of vacation and hired a lawyer and worked through the terms of my separation and negotiated my package and closed the door on a 32-year career. But it was time, because I just wasn't going to let anybody steal my power. I just wasn't going to let anybody daily humiliate me and try to diminish me. And I wasn't going to let my staff be witness to that at all, because that's not what I wanted them to learn. I wanted them to learn that they had power, they had a voice, and their leadership was not going to be disenfranchised. So I closed that door, but I didn't leave it with hate, because I knew leaving that man to his own devices would be his own destruction. That I didn't need to spend any more energy on that old fallow ground. I was moving forward and I was going to plant a new garden, which I did. Within 2 weeks of off-ramping, signing the paper, the ink dried, I hired a web developer, I hired a professional photographer, and I called 12 CEOs or senior executives of companies that I'd done business with and good work with while I was at the corporation. 11 of the 12 said they would support me. 10 of the 12 wrote me glowing letters and testimonies of the work we'd done together and the relationship we'd built, and authorized me to publish it on my website and on my LinkedIn profile, which I did. Then about 8 of them hired me to do consulting for them. My firm is consulting and advisory and leadership and business acumen. And to this day, I still have them as clients. And I have developed relationships internationally with people they've introduced me to that they have been doing business with in networking. And so now I have an international client base, as well as a domestic client base. And so through that, I was able to generate enough income to build out another business where I'm the underwriter of the business, and I have a managing partner. And we just have a monthly board meeting, and he basically runs the business. And my husband and I are now looking at opening up a 4th business, because we have another one that I haven't disclosed yet. And I was just talking to these ladies here at this table, and I said, it's serendipitous that I was assigned to your table because I think I might be able to use you as a resource. Another one of our businesses is we own some resort property in Hawaii, and we opened that up literally in January 2020, before COVID hit in February. So we were ready to open, and then we closed. Thank God the banks worked with us, because it was like, okay, well, we need some income to support this property. We can't support this on our own. The whole objective in our business plan is to generate revenue. So the banks worked with us, and we were able to weather the entire year until we had our first client in November who rented with us for 3 months, which was literally a blessing that came out of nowhere. And then come the following year, we were booked 85%, and we've been booked 85% ever since. I believe in a higher power. And so I believe that that was part of the season where God was asking me, do you trust me? You leapt in so many ways, and you couldn't see the road before you. Do you believe me now? And I believed him all along, but that really was a stop in my tracks. And I just sit with it and say, I do. And all the time before, I would give him credit and lift up praise, and now I don't do a thing without asking him first, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? And by the way, he confirmed I'm supposed to be here with you today. Just so I hope you all know, this is inspired. So I'm very grateful to be here. I'm very grateful that you invited me to come speak into your lives and share my story. And I just want you all to know that you are powerful, that you have a voice, that you are brilliant, that your brilliance is different from anybody else's brilliance. And if you have a thought, and you think that that thought might be laughed at or not considered, think otherwise, because it might be the one thought that changes the entire atmosphere. I've seen it over and over and over. And so I just want you to not stop yourself and not let anybody else stop you.
Robert's gonna be the fucking this is and they yeah and see
Isn't she beautiful? Look at how bright she is. Oh my gosh, shiny. Seriously, I can see fire all over this woman. I want to open it up if anybody has any questions. You don't have to have a question, but I want you to raise your hand. And if you have a question of me, please ask it. We have a couple minutes for this. Yes, ma'am.
what's the shit thing in the body? There's a happen.
Oh, because I was not going to be beat. Because someone was going to die, and it wasn't going to be me, and I wasn't going to be a murderer. And I am not kidding. And it wasn't going to be my son. Let me just tell you this, okay? I'm going to get really vulnerable. He hurt my son, and he tried to hide it. And I am the one who took him to the emergency room. I called his pediatrician, and I said, we have a problem, and I need you to meet me at the emergency room. And he never knew that I lived in domestic violence, but he believed me. And so having somebody believe you is so powerful. So we went to the emergency room, and the doctors were asking me what happened, and I told my husband at the time to meet me there. And I turned to him and said, you tell him what happened. And he came up with the most bullshit answers possible. It was absolutely unbelievable. It was, it was unbelievable. It was an unbelievable story. And so my doctor left the room and went and called the police. And so then the police came. Then they asked me to leave the room. And they started an inquisition right there. And they'd already taken my son to be casted because he'd broken his leg. I'll spare you the details. He wasn't even 2. And so I had people that swooped in that asked questions that said, this is not adding up. And that was the beginning of me getting an investigator. Yep, that was the beginning of me being able to call a law firm saying, I have a case and I need your help, and I don't have any money, but I'm willing to work. And so, you know, and like, my mom didn't believe me. And so that was a huge fissure in our relationship, but I didn't need her to believe me for me to believe me. Right?
That's right.
That's right. That was an excellent question. Thank you for asking that.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Okay, ladies, well, literally, it has been my honor to speak with you today. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for being vulnerable. That takes a lot of courage to be able to tell that story. Takes a lot of courage, and we all know, right, that we are in a room of 150 women, 125 women. Even if it's for one woman, she did what she was supposed to do. And I believe in that. You are in the space where you're supposed to be on the day that you're supposed to be to get your message. And so I appreciate that, and I'm sure that it resonates with a lot of us women. I want to introduce our first panel this morning. Taylor and I spent a lot of time thinking about the conversations that we wanted to have today. And one of those conversations was around your boundaries at work and making sure that you are creating space for yourself. I would love for you to clap it up for Girl, I'm Tired. Reclaim your energy by setting boundaries at work panel.
Really excited to lead this panel today. As Zenovia mentioned, we're really going to be talking about how to prioritize well-being, setting professional boundaries, and really looking to provide all of you with really tangible tactics that you can walk away with today and start implementing immediately in your day-to-day life. Because let's be real, show of hands, who needs more boundaries in their life? Come on, I know it's all of you. I know it's me for sure, so I am really looking forward to learning from all three of our wonderful panelists today. My name is Jess Pizzica, and I own a local HR and talent consulting business that I started 6 months ago, so I am in the heart of trying to figure out how to set boundaries, so really looking forward to chatting with everyone today. Could each of you please share who you are and your backgrounds?
Great, I'll start. Hi, I'm Gina Finley. I'm the Executive Director of Domestic Abuse Women's Network, known as DAWN. I reside in Allen, Washington, which is quite the distance from here. I'm really excited. I love this topic, and I really hope that we all learn today.
Thank you.
I'm Shannon Jepson Hernandez. I wear many hats. I've lived in Kent for over 23 years. I teach at Mill Creek Middle School for 13 years, and thank you for those who shouted out. I love that. But I also am the owner of Back 40 Outfitters, and we are celebrating our 15th birthday this year. However, I've only owned the business for 6 years. But we're in downtown Kent. We rent backpacking and camping equipment.
I'm Dee Dee Scott with Dee Dee Real Estate Group, powered by Keller Williams. I am also the board president of my late mom's nonprofit organization, Sierra Sisters. May she forever rest in heaven. There's a little information about who Sierra Sisters is. And I am a mother of a 20-year-old, 15-year-old, and a 2-year-old. So boundaries, yeah, I'm here for that. And I am a wife, mom, sister, daughter, and a partridge in a pear tree. That's it. That's what I got.
All right, I think we're going to get some really good insight right now. So for our kickoff question, can each of you share a time when you had to set a firm boundary at work and how it impacted your career or business? Shannon, let's go ahead and start with you.
So I'm a teacher, so I'm a note taker, but I've had many bosses, so let's not assume which boss this is. But I had a boss who kept giving me more and more and more. I'm extremely efficient and hardworking, and he knew that a woman gets things done, and so I was the right person for that. But I wasn't passionate about the things that I was being handed, and I felt this need to prove myself, so I just accepted the work. And that went on for a few years, and I realized I was extremely unhappy and I was on the verge of burnout. And so I made a PowerPoint. I walked into his office and I said, these are the things that I'm supposed to do. these are the things that you have me do, and these are the things that I'm passionate about doing. These are my skills, these are my passions. If you don't want me to burn out and quit, then I would really prefer a job where you take advantage of my talents and my passions and my efficiency and invest in me that way. The other thing I did was I told him that I had to have a personal whiteboard where I could like write to do things, because he was really bad at responding to me in an efficient time. And so I was constantly getting last minute things that made my job harder. And I literally put that on his desk and I said, you need to address my to-do list if you expect me to get these things done this quickly.
And how did he respond to that?
He said, well, honestly, at first he told one of my coworkers he thought I was money hungry because I expected to get paid for all the extra work I was doing. And then she, another woman, advocated for me and said, really, you're not really asking other people to work at the same level you're asking her, and she's not being unreasonable, and you are gonna lose a really big asset if you don't recognize this. And so he ate his humble pie, and since then he has no longer my boss, but he's still a champion and advocate for me.
Go girl. So mine involves, my story actually involves my husband, and we try to take vacations frequently, and I pride myself in being accessible for my staff. I really value that, but my husband, gently said and suggested that I turn off my email notifications when we went on vacation, and I was really reluctant, but I decided to do it. And I have to admit, I think the second morning while I was making coffee, I snuck on my emails, not so much to answer, but just to be aware. But I really did unplug from my email, and now I make that a practice. But what it did for my staff is, I think it communicated that I trusted them. I didn't realize that my constant being aware and involved probably undermined their authority. So I have my director of programs and my admin assistant here today. And when I leave, we set it up so that they're enabled to make decisions, and I unplug. So that's my boundary that has been working for me.
Well, I can say that I have many boundaries that I break, and that sometimes I am out of integrity with myself. So yes, it sounds good that I want to turn my phone off at 6 o'clock so that my family can have all of my attention, but sometimes I break my boundaries. So I think my story is, how many times have I broken my own boundary? It looks good on paper, and one of the things that I'm always doing is reassessing and reevaluating my boundary. What is realistic in the time that I'm in? What is not realistic? And what is the expectation that I have not given either my team or my clients? And I think sometimes it's just helpful if we set the expectation for our clients, right? And so for me, that's a constant work, right? So my new boundary is I don't work on Sundays, but my business runs on Sundays. So I had to set that up. It's tough because I get the text messages on Sunday or Saturday night, and I want to respond really quickly. But we set that expectation up front, and it doesn't mean that I can't give excellent service. I'm the problem.
Thank you so much. All right, so we're going to start to dig a little deeper. Gina, I have a question for you on team leadership. In your organization, how do you cultivate a culture where boundaries are respected not just for you, but for your team? Could you share an example of a best practice you have put in place and the response from your team?
Certainly. So not everybody is comfortable talking about their boundaries, and maybe they don't even think about their boundaries. So one of the things that I like to do with new staff particularly that report to me is to take time to get to know them and ask questions on how they prefer to be communicated with. I'm a huge nerd when it comes to Myers-Briggs and communication styles and all the different tests you take out there. So we've done some success signal communications just to learn. And then I start asking questions about, how can I reach out to you on your personal cell, or just, what are their preferences? So we have those conversations a lot. So one of the things that we did recently didn't bother me, but when I go to work, I work a hybrid schedule. I'm in office 3 days a week. And when I'm in office, I just spend a lot of time with staff. I really don't feel like I'm working, but that's my job. I spend time with them. And I like having my door open, but I started noticing that when I'm doing a one-on-one and people would come in and, knock, knock and interrupt, I started to watch the faces of the person that was sitting across from me, and they felt set aside, felt like I wasn't valuing them. So I had a meeting and asked everybody, we pointed out this problem, and everybody would interrupt everybody. And so I have a little slider on my door that's green. If it's closed, they know they can knock and come in. If it's red, that means unless the building's on fire and I need to be dragged out, not to interrupt. And I really noticed that the people, and Elba's one of them, and Dominique, they both report to me, that when I have that time with them and I protect it, then they feel valued. And so that's a boundary that they all respect now, but so that's work.
I really love not only the boundaries there, but also just you're listening to the team and really hearing what they need and making accommodations and knowing that leadership is a selfless servant act. So thank you for that example. Dee Dee, let's talk about burnout. I am a very recent entrepreneur, and you've got a lot of experience. I'm going to tell you the hustle is real. I am either sleeping or thinking about my business, and when I am sleeping, I am dreaming about my business. So how can small business owners like me set boundaries for themselves while scaling their businesses?
Ooh, yeah, that's hard, because so, disclaimer, I started my business as a single mother. I built it as a single mom, right? And so there were times that the boundary was, hey, I just can't come. My kid's got 102 fever. I'm just not going to be able to make it. I think you have to, first of all, give yourself grace, right? You're building something from the ground up, so right now you're probably paying it more in time and energy, and one day it'll flip where you can leverage that, right, in money when your capital comes in. I would say to work hard to work from a place of rest instead of working trying to get to rest, because the body will burn out. The body will take rest and it will take sleep. The other thing that I would say is when you are scheduling your week, schedule your day off first. It's the first thing you do, schedule your day off. You may have to work 6 days a week for a little bit, but when you look at that week, schedule your first day off. Doesn't matter what day it is, but schedule it off. Take some time off for yourself, because as entrepreneurs, especially visionaries, we see things from an aerial perspective that many people don't see, right? The other thing that I would say is as much leverage as you can get the leverage, because you cannot do it all. You can't be everywhere. The first leverage that I got was a housekeeper. Nobody told me that that was a game changer. That somebody cleaning your toilets and making sure your house smells like Fabuloso and a little bit of bleach when you come home, because that your home is your safe haven. That's my advice.
All right, so I got my nugget for the day, which is schedule your day off first. I have been more of a run like crazy till I hit the wall and fall over dead and then take a day off. So I'm gonna change, so thank you.
Because you'll resent the place, and you'll be like, God, I don't even want to do this anymore, forget this. Yeah.
All right, Shannon, this one's for you. You're a mom, you're running a business, and you're teaching middle school. Okay, that's a lot. A lot. So could you share some non-negotiables boundaries that you've established to protect your well-being?
Yes, and it's interesting because my adult daughter is here, also a business owner, and so she's going to hold me accountable to every word, right? I believe in establishing a culture of boundaries based on integrity. And so how we treat each other has to come first. I learned about boundaries very late in life. I grew up in a boundaryless home, and all my examples around me, and I'm an educated, mature woman, but for some reason this was not a conversation that happened in the beginning half of my life, until I eventually started paying attention to the conversation, right? But I became a single mom, And I tried to do all the things, and I was going crazy, and people were telling me, you're a Wonder Woman, you're a Superwoman, how do you do it? And I thought, nobody should live like this. This is a horrible way to live. I was sleeping 3 hours a night, right? And so I started with, let's talk about what I need, what you need. So within my home, within my work, within my business, within my employees, I share, this is where I'm at. This is what I'm capable of. This is my capacity. What? So they tell me to. It goes both ways. We write those boundaries together. As far as what I passed off, I didn't get a housekeeper, I wish. But I finally got a gardener because, the last thing that got tended to in my home was my yard. So it looked horrible. And then the small things. I pass off pet care. Like my kids all know, I love my dogs, but I am not taking care of my dogs. And then the last thing that I passed off, which is just a really simple thing I picked up as a single mom, was that everybody has to be in charge of something in the house, so I'm not monitoring. So when my son was little, he paid attention to the batteries. Are we running low on batteries? He'd write it on my grocery list. And now they're older, so now they're in charge of picking up the toilet paper, picking up the paper towels, whatever it may be. And so those are just less things. And then the last and final thing is I set aside a week, about every 6 months, where I try to can a whole bunch of soup, so I always have a healthy lunch, and I make sure within that weekend that I'm purchasing, I have enough Tide Pods for 6 months. I don't have to think about things. My home is well stocked and well ready for me, and so I can just focus on the things I need to.
Great, and you've kind of teed up my next question, and I think this one probably will resonate with everyone in the room. As a woman, as women, and sometimes as moms, we hustle all day, and then a lot of times we're going home to our second job. I know I'm blessed enough to have a stay-at-home husband, but somehow I'm still in charge of grocery shopping, making the meal plan. Somehow those jobs are still mine because I'm a woman. So I would love more examples from all three of you on what things you have shamelessly delegated or outsourced, because let's normalize it. Let's normalize getting help. So what other things have you guys outsourced in your lives?
Well, I had knee surgery 2 years ago, and I was encouraged. I actually love cleaning house. It's sort of therapy for me. But my neighbor said, you really should just get your house cleaned. And I reluctantly hired somebody, and it was so awesome. So now I have to admit, and I appreciate your question because I feel a little guilty. I still do, but when I know someone's at my house cleaning, and like you said, the smell, and she can clean the mirrors, I don't know what her secret is, but I just walk through my house and it feels so good. So I do treat myself to a house cleaning about once a month, and I love it. So do it.
We're bi-weekly. We were once a week. We need help. Got kids. Housekeeping or house cleaning, number one. Instacart is my absolute friend. Absolute friend. If you really think about the time that it takes for you to write down your grocery list, go to the grocery store, stand in line, bag, come back home, put away. That just sounds crazy now, right? And so Instacart is my friend. I have, again, 2015 and 2, and so everybody is supposed to have a day where they're supposed to cook. So if they don't cook on their day, I got baby, and I do have a husband, but I will Uber Eats for myself. Y'all supposed to cook. So there is ramen. There's always top ramen. You can put you an egg in there, get you a protein and some hot sauce, and you can go to bed. We went to college. Y'all know what that looks like, right? You can get a can of soup. You can do the things, but really leaning on the people in your house to help out and have some buy-in. That, we all live together, so somebody's got to take out the garbage. Who's doing that? My husband does that. So it's a moving target all the time, but if you don't cook, my 2 oldest ones, it's ramen and hot sandwiches with a slab of egg and maybe a bologna. Fried bologna out there.
Thank you. I'm actually, did you have another one? Go for it.
I was just going to share, and don't forget the other people that are in your life, right? I have a ton of amazing friends who are women who are also dealing with all the exact same things. And because we choose to openly speak with each other, sometimes we outsource stuff to each other. Like, hey, I'm running a Costco. What do you need? And it's just lifted up my life so much more to to have people, especially women, have my back.
Love that. Great. All right, Dee Dee, back to you. Real estate and your foundation work are both highly relational driven. What advice do you have for saying no without impacting relationships?
I've been working on this script for a little bit, a long time. And I think I finally got it to say, I don't have the capacity at this time. That's it. I'm sorry, I don't have the capacity at this time. It's a whole, and most of the time, it's softer than no, right? No, well, why? See, then my blood pressure, you're asking me why, that just is because no is a whole sentence. So I just say I don't have the capacity. And if it's something that I'm interested in, then I would go say, but let's check in 90 days. Let's see where I'm at. And you know what? Some people check in 90 days. I'm sorry, I still don't have the capacity. Can we maybe do 6 months? Can we maybe do the first of the year?
Okay, so on the count of 3, let's all say I don't have the capacity at this time together. Ready? 1, 2, 3. I don't have the capacity at this time. All right, thank you. Love that.
It took me 10 years to figure out, like, what am I supposed to say? That's it.
I'm going to challenge everyone to say that sometime this week. Gina, I'm going to pick your brain on follow through. So many of us will ideate or even commit to boundaries, but then we won't enforce them. What tactics do you use to hold yourself accountable to the boundaries that you set?
Well, a tactic, I think, is actually communicating it, saying it out loud, having a trusted friend or circle, or even some of your coworkers or people that work with you, just to say this is something that maybe it's hard for you to hold that boundary, and being vulnerable enough to admit that. And I know, especially when you're in leadership, people often have an image of you as, you know, never having any issues, never having any problems, and I know we kind of can't dump on our staff or people around us, but I think just being vulnerable enough to say that I struggle with this, would you hold me accountable? Again, going back to my whole email thing, I definitely, it's tempting for me to be available, it really is, so I think it's important for people to know and communicate. An example, it's sort of related, but at our place of work, we obviously a nonprofit, we talk a lot about self-care, and I don't want it to be just talk, so I'm pick on Dominique a little bit and give her some credit. We switched the way we do leave time off, and we at one time had floating holidays, and that was just really cumbersome to track. So we decided to do 4 personal days a year, and each quarter staff, in addition to their vacation and their sick time, they get a day. And I'm old school, I just call it personal day. And the suggestion came up to call it a self-care day. And I was like, this is kind of, to me it just seemed, too touchy-feely, but I was over, Dominique has a really strong personality, so we sometimes debate. So she won, and we have a self-care day, and so this is our first quarter, and it really changed people's, their approach, because usually people don't share what they do on their personal days, but on a self-care day, our shelter manager got a whole new haircut. I mean, she dyed it short, and she's like, this is what I did on my self-care day. And another person had a massage, and I think that it's like, there's just something about the language that it's okay to take care of yourself and celebrate that, and then we're holding them accountable. If they don't use their self-care day, it's gone. Then they have to get a new one the next quarter. So it's sort of that time sensitivity where and Elba, have you taken your self-care day this quarter? You have like 2 weeks. She's the worst. We're working on it. So I'll hold her accountable to take her self-care day.
I love that forced self-care. It's really a nice thing. I mean, you need someone to push you to do that sometimes, for sure. All right, Shannon, let's talk about pushback. Have you ever received pushback from a colleague, a friend, or a family member about your boundaries, and how would you advise others handle those situations?
Yeah, I hardcore received pushback years ago when I started setting boundaries because everybody was so used to me not having any boundaries and they could get pretty much anything they wanted out of me. I was raised by a bunch of women who were my examples, phenomenal women, but they seemed like they had limitless energy to solve every problem possible, and I thought that was my job too. And so when this theme and topic of boundaries started opening up, universally, I was curious about that. And initially when I did it, it started with my kids. The pushback was awful, and I thought, my kids are gonna hate me, we're gonna have the worst relationship. But it took about 6 months, because culture shock takes 6 months, right? The transition takes 6 months for my family to adopt and understand that this was actually gonna be a good thing for them. But since then, that's evolved, in all aspects of my life. And about a year ago, I had somebody who mentors me tell me, because like you, I need to hold myself accountable, right? You both have said that. You both mentioned that you're the worst at your own boundaries, and you talked about having somebody else hold you accountable. And so that reminds me in my mind, like, I know exactly what they're talking about. But somebody who was holding me accountable a year ago said, you need to practice enlightened selfishness. And my best friend was sitting in the room watching this conversation, and she just started laughing, and then she texted me, enlightened selfishness, and then she said, I'm putting it on a t-shirt, and I'm giving it to you. And the idea about enlightened selfishness is that while everybody around you is going to be uncomfortable, and they're going to look at you and think, wow, you're being so selfish, that they're going to realize eventually that your wisdom, you were foreseeing a better life for both of you, right? In all your relationships, whether they're personal or professional, when you choose to think out of the box in this way with your boundaries, it helps everybody, the experience just get better.
Right. This is a question for anybody who has some great advice to share. If somebody sitting in the audience is already feeling really overwhelmed and burnt out, where do you suggest they start in thinking about setting boundaries? Because if you're already deep in the hole, it can feel really overwhelming and daunting to pull yourself up. Any advice on how to get over that wall?
Sometimes it's just okay to just pause and go away for a little bit, right? You don't owe anybody an explanation at that time. You have to kind of put that mask on first, that oxygen mask on first, and go away and figure out what you need and figure out where you really are. Because sometimes we can go, and we just lose our way. We're like, where am I in real life? I remember a time when I was transitioning my business, right? And my business was growing, but I couldn't hear my kids talk, right? They're talking, but I'm really not listening. My house looked like a garbage can, my car looked like a garbage can. The bank account was great, and I just remember thinking to myself, if this is what it takes, I don't want this. Send me back to the money that my little twos and fews, and where I can take my kids, to the park. So I think sometimes you just have to stop, right? And just cancel those appointments, move them to the next week or the week after. You have to be also okay with the fallout, that while you're in transition, you're not gonna be able to save all those relationships. And the ones that are supposed to be with you through and through, they will come back around, and they will have grace, and they will understand. And sometimes you can't call people back, right? So the ones that are not upset, and maybe a couple months later, hey, I love you, I'm praying for you, keep going. The ones that are really in your corner, they're going to send you some Uber Eats with some spaghetti or some Subway or whatever. So you just stop. Go away, go to sleep. Go to sleep, go to bed, right? Write down all of your expectations that you have for yourself. Write down the expectations that others have on you, because I think sometimes you'll find that the expectations that you have for yourself were actually put on by other people. And get really clear on where you're going. And you can come back a better person, and then you can say with clarity, I'm sorry, at this time I don't have the capacity.
Like that. Good job, good one.
Question. I have a quick question about that phrase. Do you use the word sorry? Because I kind of feel like sometimes I do tend to apologize for things, and I'm working on that. So.
Unfortunate.
Oh, unfortunately. So I love my calendar, I love my lists, and I'm thinking, someone who already feels like they're like in a pit, I do think I agree with you, to pause and take a temperature check and be honest with yourself. And it starts with being honest with yourself. I think we sometimes tell ourselves, we ignore those, our health, we ignore being tired. So I think being honest and pausing. But looking at the calendar, I've learned to color code personal and work. And so someone told me a while back, you look at your calendar and you there should be a nice balance of your colors. And when you start seeing all work colors and no personal time, that's a great time to just stop and, like I said, cancel things and just say, you need to move this. Monday, I'm just going to share, be a little vulnerable here. I got the invitation from Zenovia for the panelists and the vendors, and I do experience FOMO. If I'm not someplace, I'm an extrovert. But I live an hour plus away, and Mondays are my day to work from home, and I protect that time. And I was even I knew Elba was going to go, so Dom was represented. But just being okay, saying what's again? I don't have the capacity. I obviously got to practice, but I'm proud of myself that I did say no on Monday and I didn't show up, and it was a good decision for me.
So I had a friend years ago who had date night with her husband, and that was religious. And I mean, no matter what we did, and I sometimes get a little hurt, like, really, this is like a really big event, and you're skipping out on it, or your weekly date night. But when I got into my new relationship, I've been together like 6 years now, so it's not that new, but I was like, I want to establish this date night thing, and I was like, I'm going to copy my friend and make this boundary, because I have a tendency to overwork and put my personal last, and it does hurt all of my relationships, and I know that's my problem. And so I did that, and I missed so many things I really, really, really wanted to go to, but it was sending a message to my partner that you are so important to me and you're more important than some of these other things. And so I think it's important for us to, like, whether it's color coding, I'm a lister, I got like OCD lists everywhere, but to make sure that when you put it down, it's down. Right? And because you're also sending a message to everybody else. If you're canceling on somebody else, you're telling them that they're not as valuable. So you got to make those decisions.
Yeah, I love the date night example, because I, for years, have felt like, why would you need a date night? Like, that seems like scheduling, it just feels wrong. But I will say, as I started my new business, my husband's like, do I ever get to see you? And I'm like, we probably better schedule it, because it's not going to happen otherwise. All right, so I'd love to hear from all three of you on this one. If you could give your younger self one piece of advice on establishing boundaries, what would it be? Think about where you were 15, 20 years ago.
I'm going to go back a little further, as I'm old, and that wasn't that long ago. Mine is actually more a relationship. I think I've really turned a corner once I turned 50, maybe even 40, but I put up with a lot of, can I say shitty? That's okay. So I put up with a lot of shitty friendships and a lot of shitty male relationships, because I would give people passes all the time, and I have learned as well, you know what, people show you who they are, and believe them and move on. I think Elba and I just had this conversation about dating and how many times you put up with something, and I said, that's it, yeah, because move on. There's a lot of great people out in the world. So I think that's a boundary, and something I would have told myself is just to respect myself enough to I value myself that other people should, and just walk away.
Yeah.
I think we don't talk about boundaries enough when you're younger, but I think that you have to really pay attention. If I was to tell myself when I was in my 20s and my 30s, pay attention to your body. Pay attention to how your body is responding when that person calls you. Are you getting anxiety? If every time that person is calling you or you're calling them, it seems to be like always contention, and you're trying to save this situation or trying to save this relationship. I'm not talking about man or woman, I'm just talking about just in general. That means that there's a disconnect in the alignment. And you could be the problem. I've been plenty of the problem in many relationships, but that means that I'm out of alignment with myself. I'm out of alignment with my integrity, right? And so I think I've just been paying attention more to, okay, when this person calls, do I have anxiety? Okay, well, right now, this person can't be on the team right now. I have to stay in integrity with myself. I think, and going back to if I was 20 and 30, what am I pretending to not know what I know about the situation or the friendship?
Yeah.
What am I pretending to not know about the situation that I know about the situation? You know it. As women, we have a 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 sense. So let's stop playing with people. You know that, and you're wasting time and energy on something that you know is not going anywhere. That's what I would tell me.
Yes. Look at that.
I love that you said that because I wrote notes. Like when I read this question, it was very powerful to me. And one of the things I said is, if it feels wrong, it is wrong, right? So, and what I put down that I wanted to share, which I wish somebody told me, was stop accommodating everything and everyone. And I don't know why it is just in general in the nature of women to do this. And at some point we make ourselves believe it's our responsibility. And so you have to know your value. And maybe it was just the generation that we grew up in, that wasn't the messaging that we were given to know our value. I once had a person, I was pricing, I used to own a wedding business, and my price structure was really low, and somebody said, "You're not allowed to price your own stuff anymore, I'm pricing it for you because you don't know your value." And I was like, "What?" And they like took that over, and they doubled my pricing. And I have continued on that theme for years of just really lowballing my value and allowing myself to be put in situations where I know it's wrong, my instinct's telling me it's wrong, and I continue to accommodate it. And the only reason why it's different now is because at some point, and I think you hit an age where you're like, I'm done, it's not worth it. And then you start to be true to yourself.
I'm gonna ask a question that's not on the script, so sorry. I'm curious if you have any great tactics that you use for unplugging from technology. Like if you have something you do to put your phone away. When I started my business, I got a second phone because I was like, this is gonna be my business phone. I'm gonna leave it on a shelf when I'm not doing my business. Now I just carry 2 phones everywhere. So clearly not doing that. So what advice do you have for unplugging without being out of cell phone range, because it doesn't exist anymore?
So my husband and I, by the way, I have an amazing husband now, so I learned my lessons. We have made agreements together because I think there's strength in numbers that, hey, when we're together, I mean, there's times when we're looking up something, together, talking about something and do some research, but I do think if you can partner with somebody, especially to practice that and just put the phone in a different room and really enjoy being present in the moment with people, with your loved ones, with your staff. The phones are wonderful tools. I mean, I'm so thankful for them, but there's time to put it down. Just do it.
Well, I'm a work in progress. Summers. As of 3 days ago, right? Because you're asking this like, oh, what are you guys doing? Well, I'm not doing it well. Not doing it well. But I did make a commitment 3 days ago that I was not going to check my social media in the morning. So maybe y'all are great at that, right? But the first thing that I did was I roll over and I check my Facebook and my Instagram. So I'm not really great at it, but my first step is to not check my social media in the morning. The goal that I would love to have is when I first put my feet on the floor to, number one, give God praise, because that's another day that He's blessed me with, right? The second thing is to go straight to my devotion and get my mind right and get my day right, because the darts are coming from people, right? And so, or from yourself. Like, I would just love to get those 2 things down. Praise, devotion, be ready for my day, and hopefully maybe the social media thing like 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the afternoon. That's where I'm working.
Love that.
So on that note, I have turned all the limits. You can set your phone to limits, like 1 hour social media, 1 hour games, or, and then it'll say, do you want to ignore this for 15 minutes, or do you want to ignore this for the day? And so I still have that power to make those choices for me, but it's a nice reminder. So that's one thing. Two, not great at it, but we've established in our home, no politics on Sunday. So we're all kind of on the same political page in our house, but we get really wound up when we hear things. And it's just stealing from our spirituality and our energy and that day of rest, right? And so I know that my psyche needs a day of rest, and so I'm trying to make that happen. Three, I used to do none of those. There's a really great book by Christine Carter called The Sweet Spot, and she was like the guru of happiness. And I heard her in a keynote, and she talked about how she ended up in the hospital with a kidney problem because she was working so hard. And it just resonated with me because that was my life. And I also had ended up in the hospital with some medical things because of overworking. And so I had somebody share with me that when you get your nails done and you get your hair done, you're investing in yourself. People are watching your charisma, your confidence. And so I felt really guilty at first of investing in myself, but now I understand that I can be the best boss, I can be the best teacher, I can be the best mom that I'm capable of in that moment if I'm taking care of myself. And I listened to this great podcast, and one of the speakers on it talked about how if you have 5 buckets, and everybody gets to assign what those buckets are, right? So I'm not going to tell you what your bucket should be, but my bucket is health, and my business, and my family, and my spirituality, and something else I can't remember, but I got it written down. But ask yourself, when somebody asks something of you, or you're about to sign yourself up for something, you ask yourself, which of these buckets does this fit in? And if it doesn't fit in one of my buckets, it's not happening, because I'm not accommodating anymore, right? I'm serving me, my family, and the people I love. And in doing so, we all get to be happy.
All right, so closing question. Many times as a panelist, you get to learn on the spot from speaking and hear your peers speak. So based on what we've discussed today, what is one thing you're going to do differently to set boundaries moving forward?
One better way than cat.
Right.
Good thing more.
Well, and just what you just said, there were several things that resonated with me, but really being intentional about where we put our energies, our investment, our time, our emotions, and knowing yourself, knowing what your mission is, what your values are, and so is this adding to that? I like the visual of the buckets, and so I'm gonna ask myself that when things come my way. Is it fitting in? I need to decide what buckets are, probably very similar buckets, but is this gonna foster growth in those buckets? So I like that.
Yeah, I'll go to the bucket. I like that. I think, we all, whether we have a physical or in our mind buckets, you're sowing into something, right? And so I think for me, just reevaluating what are my buckets, and continuously to have a relationship with what's in those buckets, which means you have to look at what you're pouring into daily, weekly, monthly, and reevaluating where your boundaries are, maybe where you have kind of slipped and moved out of integrity. So I like the bucket.
So a few things I took away, actually from our keynote speaker and from you all. I loved that she shared that advocacy of women to women is noticed and seen as important. And being here today and doing more things like this is reminding me, frequently I work with middle schoolers or my customers are online, and so I don't get a lot of opportunities to watch women and learn from women and stick up for women. And so that's something that I'm taking away. But also, when you shared that you're having to check in on your own boundaries, and that was a really good reminder to me, and that I'm going to adopt that. And you also shared about having somebody else hold you accountable, and I'm going to adopt that too, because we all can level up, right? So we're standing up here talking about boundaries, and you definitely gave me some things to think about how I can level up my boundary game.
I don't think that you can have boundaries or level up without solid accountability, right? Because you'll slip, you'll make excuses or reasons why you can't do the thing today. Get you a coach, get you a mentor, Get around people that you can be vulnerable with and say, hey, this is where I want to go, but let me tell you where I keep falling off the wagon time and time and time again. I've hit a ceiling of achievement here. I can't really see beyond the horizon right now. I need help. Find your tribe, right? Not the people, not the cheerleaders. You're always going to have cheerleaders, but find the people that love you enough to say, hey, you said you wanted me to help you be committed to this thing, and I can see that you're moving left. How can I help you stay in alignment and stay in integrity with yourself?
Great. Well, the three of you have been highly motivational. Thank you so much. Round of applause for our wonderful panelists.
It's my great pleasure to spend a little bit of time first to remind us all, this is Women's History Month, right? And I want, especially the younger folks in the audience, to ponder this date for a moment. And something you may not possibly have known, that a woman could not get a credit card in her own name, nor could she have a mortgage, obtain a mortgage, until 1974. So it has not been all that long. And the irony with that is that most of us in this room are CFOs. You're the CFO of your own finances, but about 49% of women report that they are the CEO of their household finances. So this is an important topic and one that I think that we will have a lot of fun with as well. I'm joined by several really impressive women, including Nichelle Brown here from the Children's Therapy Center, who, when she was hired there to be the CFO, was the first African-American woman to be named CEO for the Children's Therapy Center, which has been around since 1979. And has an impressive background in service, public service, and a heart for the community. You can enjoy brief bios in your program for each of the ladies. And the next person here is Carmen Goers. Many of you may know her. She's very well known in this group because she's been a longtime member of the Kent Chamber and a leader leading the Legislative Affairs Committee for, are you currently the Legislative Affairs currently as well? My nails couldn't get there fast enough. Yes, currently Government Affairs Chair. Excellent, excellent. And she's also been a committed advocate for regional development since 2007, contributing to projects such as the Kent Y fundraising initiative and the Moving Washington Transportation Package. She is passionate about community service and has served on numerous nonprofit boards, fundraising committees, and youth sports programs. Please join me in welcoming Carmen. Next on our panel, we have Jenny Lynn Tran. She is a dedicated mortgage loan advisor and Seattle native, passionate about helping individuals achieve home ownership and build wealth through real estate. With a focus on financial education, Jenny Lynn guides clients through conventional loan programs and unique loan programs, including down payment assistance, mortgage loans for investors, VA loans for veterans, and many more. I know she will have much, much to share with us. So we're going to dive right in. The title for this was Mastering Financial Wellness in 5 Steps. And the focus of those 5 steps: financial literacy, wealth building strategies, business finance, and personal financial wellness. And in order to figure out your financial wellness, I think we have to start by defining financial wellness. Michelle, how do you define financial wellness? What does it mean to you? And why do you think it's crucial for professionals and business owners alike?
Thank you. First, I want to extend my bio. I walked up in here and I was asked to be on this panel, and I said yes, right? Sometimes we don't know what our role is going to be. We don't know what people are going to call us in to do, and we have to be ready. And so I am always ready for the chamber. I have over 20 years of experience in nonprofit leadership. I have a bachelor's in social work from Norfolk State University. Thank you. And I have a master's in adult organizational development from Temple University in Philadelphia, PA. I have an amazing, illustrious women-led team who is over there at Children's Therapy Center, multi-diverse. And we are taking these areas by storm. We have 4 commercial properties around South King County and Pierce County. And so I am the youngest, I am the first, and I am the only Black woman who has a neurodivergent organization in the Pacific Northwest, but also in the country. Okay? So I want to make sure we always make room and space, as Zenovia says, and we need to be ready to step up when need to happen. So how do I look at financial healthiness, and what does that look like? What it looks like first is, what is your belief system in money, right? Where did that come from? What does money mean to you? In the last panel, they talked about the core and when you were growing up. Was it something that you understood? Was it something that was introduced to you? And how was it introduced to you? So first, understanding what does money mean to you, but also everything you're gonna hear from me is going to be around a cultural assessment called HAVE, habits, attitudes, beliefs, and expectations. Y'all know the HAVE. Everything that you do you have to make sure you have a habit in that's positive. You have to make sure you have an attitude that you understand and that you're engaging. You have a belief system in what you want the boundaries to be when it comes to money and what money means. And what are you expecting? What are you expecting from the community? What are you expecting from yourself? And are you willing to go the great lengths in order to understand how money can actually be a driver and a tool for success? And so at our organization, we're transparent, we're honest, and we lead with that vulnerability. And what does it look like to not only get good money from funders and donors, because all money isn't good money, right? And a lot of us are always looking for funding and grants, and we're all looking for the same ones, right? And it shouldn't only be those small areas where we find pots of money. And so there are smaller nonprofits, big nonprofits, for-profits that don't utilize their money in the right way, and then don't put their money into institutions that they can loan back out to the community, right? And so we have to make sure that even for a big business, we have our mission and our value system is rooted in giving that money back, because you can give your money back to a small credit union and they can use that money to then loan out to other small nonprofits, right? So if you have investments and endowments, you make sure that you understand what those are.
Thank you so much, Michelle.
That's hard to follow, isn't it? I'm a numbers nerd. Happy Pi Day from the nerd on the top. Yes, thank you. You know, financial wellness, I've taught financial literacy from elementary to adults, and it's really about where you're happy and where you're content. As was spoken earlier, if you've got $1 million and you think more money, I'll be happier, that's not an accurate statement. So it's really finding out what you need and where you want to be, and then working towards that. So that's the financial wellness that I consider in simple terms.
Thank you. In addition to the items that you guys shared, because I think the belief system is so strong, like you really have to understand what money means to you. And outside of that, having control over your finances, right? Knowing what your numbers actually look like, not what it's supposed to look like, or what it should be, or what your neighbors' numbers look like, but what your numbers look like. Because I think when you're more aware, you can make better decisions, and then you're building a solid foundation of growth and not just survival, right?
Thank you so much, Jenny. I think that we're gonna take a look at mindset and money, since that does seem to dovetail a little bit into defining the financial wellness. The mindset and money, what is one financial mindset set shift that helped you take control of your finances or growing your business?
Yeah, I do feel like with money and mindset, you guys, now women and minority business owners have such a lack in, in just being known, right? We have a lack in access to capital and just resources, personal and business. And so I think that if we focus more on that and being able to utilize and understand that, money is a tool, right? Not just what we need. And so when we shift our mindset to that, we'll be able to have access to more of that.
I'm gonna lean in here and say, budget is not a diet. Your budget is your priorities. Your budget is what's important to you. So if having a filet mignon lifestyle is appropriate, then recognize you might have to live in a shack. If living on living on the top of a nice hill is important to you, you may be choosing to eat peanut butter and jelly. But a budget is not about constrictions and diets and what I can't do. You tell your money what to do. Don't let it tell you what's left to do with. And that's, I think, a big mind shift that helps a lot of us kind of move forward. There's power in that.
Okay, that's a nugget right there, right? Your budget is not a diet. I love that. It's all about figuring out your priorities.
So I brought this book up here because it's important. It says, I evolved when I laid it all down. I evolved when I laid it all down. And that's basically what these two amazing women are talking about, right? In order to even be able to start anywhere, you have to first understand what's on the table for me. What do I even have? You need to put it all down, lay all that down, and then start to the place where it's, do I have caviar dreams, but bare money? What do I have, right? And what does that mean to where I'm trying to go? What level of control do I have? What is my relationship with money? All of those questions you still have to ask yourself. And then what is holding me back? I remember the other panel talked about, what is holding me back from even being able to start? Do I need to pause? Do I need to seek mentorship? What do I need to do? So up against these two women, I do think that one of the other nuggets is that you have to make sure you understand what's in front of you, what you have, and what does that relationship, again, with money really mean, like you're saying.
Excellent, thank you so much. The next thing I'd like to ask you about is financial wellness at work. And Michelle, I was gonna start with you, but we can start with Carmen. We're gonna start with Carmen. Yes. So how can employers support financial wellness among employees? Are there benefits or programs that truly make a difference?
Let me stand in as the employer, because that's what I am. The one thing that the employers can do, one, is to be honest about the business practices that they have in general, and being transparent and actually showcase what are the budgets of this organization, what is the revenue versus the expenses. Let me use the language that's used inside of the organizations, right? If you have more going out than what's coming in, that's an issue, right? I talk to my staff about if we can't flush the toilet and put the lights on, that's a problem, right? If we're not keeping up with the utilities of the organization, that's a problem. Just like your house, that organization has to run, the door has to open, right? It has to close, the lights have to come on, they have to come off. And so transparency, honesty is what we drive, and we are a mission of Children's Therapy Center, but also you need to have key point indicators, KPIs, that are connected to your strategic plan. You should have a strategic plan around the finances. How do you want your organization or your business to grow? What does that look like? Be in relationship, not just with executives, but with people who know how to save. That can be the person across the street who has a grocery storefront. That can be the person that's been in Head Start for 20 years and has been running 2 lucrative Head Starts, right? It's about community. It's about whose business has stayed up. I don't care if there's 5 people in that building or 500. They've been there for 20, 40 years. A lot of times we look at the lights, we look at the glitz, we look at social media, and we don't understand that that's an empty house. We don't understand that that business is a day from being closed, but they have all the bells and the whistles on the outside. So it's really important, like I tell my staff to do, is we go in the basement and we go in the roof. That's where we start. And then we get back in the flesh of the organization. But if you don't know where you work, and this is from me to you, if you don't know the business practices of where you work, that's a problem. I don't care if you're the office coordinator at the front desk. You should have an understanding of how that organization runs itself, and it should be interested in educating you as an organization and as a staff member on how you can continue to have capital in your life, how they're going to invest in you, and what that looks like, because that builds up the organization.
Thank you.
Same question, Connie.
So I'm gonna go from the employee side, because I've been an employee for all these years. A couple things, recognizing as an employee, whether you're a cost center or you're a income generating center. So while I'm currently in front end sales, and my job is to sell money, it's harder than it sounds, let me tell you. I've also been a cost center where I was in operations, where I was in documentation, where I was in servicing. And so I recognize that when things need to get cut and leaned out, your salespeople still get to go to lunch and they still do all those great things, while back here we're trying to ration out staples and on a real day, right? And so knowing where you are in that and how you can help the company in your capacity, because that makes you a real asset that they want to retain outside of just the numbers and your salary. But also, most employers, have different benefit packages. I work at a financial institution, so we get free checking, yay. Get to pick our own checks, yay. Barney, But you also look down and you might have a discount at 24-Hour Fitness, or you have a discount at Verizon. Use all your discounts you can. And then we have our 401k or our savings plans, and to the best of your ability. One organization I worked with, they use Fidelity, and Fidelity, even outside of your 401k, sends you quarterly lunch and learns that you can sit there and go in on learn about different parts of investing, which we'll talk about later. But leveraging up what's available, because it's sometimes free, we don't really look at all of the things that are in there. I have one of my daughters had free Costco, or they were a flight attendant. So we're like, when do your benefits kick in for flights? Use all of those things as your employee, and then amongst your family and friends to leverage it out to maximize your financial position.
Excellent. Jenny Lynn?
Yeah, I'll add to that. I guess that we have employer, employee, now self-employed. And so I feel like for self-employment, when you think about financial awareness in the workplace, what does that mean to you, right? Because you feel alone in it. And I feel like the one powerful tool we have is to ask, right? To go ask, to do the research, and to find out. We are surrounded by so many people around us who has information, who are everything involves, or we're all involved around money, right? It doesn't hurt to ask. Now, some people may not share personal things, but then that's where we have to have the financial responsibility to go to a bank. One thing I share is, what I'm finding rare nowadays, and I started as a teller and worked my way up, right? I never imagined myself to be a mortgage loan advisor, right? But for me, it's not just that title, it's more than that, right? It is financial education and financial literacy, and sharing what I know and what I'm learning with everyone around me, because that's how we're gonna learn, and that's how I learn, and that's how I share. So that way they can learn too. So I bring back the story of going into the bank. Oftentimes, when you go to the bank, you go for whatever it is that you're going for, a withdrawal, a deposit, maybe to check your balance, maybe you want to open an account or something. But how often are they actually reviewing your account history, understanding what your spendings look like, and offering solutions or even something that'll help you grow, right? It's so rare that you go into a bank now and they're gonna say, hey, look, I've noticed your account habits have been this. Have you thought about maybe converting it to this, where you can invest in a higher yield savings? It's not much compared to what's out there, but it's something better than nothing, than zero interest, right? And then just utilizing credit. When I'm on calls too, and people are saying like, hey, what I don't want is debt. Well, you have to get out of that mindset of seeing debt as a bad thing, but potentially utilizing it as a tool of how do I use this money to make more money, right? So that way you can pay off these debts and you can invest in yourself. And so I feel like, the financial wellness in the workplace is really just taking accountability and responsibility for yourself to get that information and then share that information.
Excellent, thank you. So Nichelle, This is going to be a fun one. Actually, it's probably one of my most favorite ones on this entire list, because we've all experienced financial setbacks. Can you share a time when you made a financial mistake or faced a setback? How did you recover, and what lessons did you learn?
So I thought about this, and I was going to use the notes, but you know I don't need the notes for setbacks. So I want to talk about inheriting, right? So I inherited what the other leaders before me did or didn't do when it came to the financial stewardship of Children's Therapy Center. And I understood that before I said yes to being the CEO of Children's Therapy Center. And that's a powerful point, because a lot of times we don't know what we're going to walk into, but oftentimes we can't find out before we walk into it. We just don't know the relative questions to ask, right? And so I was being mentored by this beautiful woman in the fuchsia pink over there, my mother, when it comes to collective questions to ask all the time, right? And so I inherited, a lot of us inherit, whether it's from our families, whether it's from our organizations, we inherit bad practices or not so great practices, right? And so with that, what I did is I sought out stewardship and support. And I sought out people who were good and experts in that field, because you have to know what you're good at and what you're not so good at. And you have to get out of the way and allow for people who know how to do it to get in that space, but then work alongside them and be mentored. So I currently sit with some of those women over there as the director of finance and the CFO of this organization, because I currently do not have one. And so I have been learning the entire time how to steward a lucrative organization with 4 commercial properties, but in that, it's the level of questions and mentorship and having this beautiful black face that's 42 years old going into banks, right? And they may not know that it's you that's the CEO, but when you give them the business acumen of financial stewardship, and you learn, because you have to be educated in what you're interested in, and that's what I'm saying. If you're interested in understanding financial stewardship, you have to seek guidance and mentorship so you don't harm. And that's my message. You can harm because you simply did not seek to engage, to learn about how to serve the community. If you are in a position of power to serve the community and you are not interested in the financial stewardship and what it looks like for communities to be stolen from, then you need to get out of the way.
Thank you.
Mother's applauding over there. I believe many of us in here, that we talk about financial mistakes or setbacks. Many of us are parents. I am the mother of 4 daughters. They range from 30 to 34. They did not come with a financial plan. And so high school, we had 2 freshmen, a sophomore, and a senior. That's expensive, but it doesn't have to be. You can only stop feeding children for so long before it becomes an issue. You lie, but people will tell you otherwise. The thing, because again, I talk about a budget's not a diet, but it's also a breathing, living thing that has to ebb and flow. And you have medical things that come up, you have unexpected, building issues, a roof collapse, or there's a pipe that bursts, things of that nature. And so you have to always be able to adjust and accommodate those things. And so, I've gone through a divorce, and that sets you back tremendously. And so you have to, my number one comment around that is go back to your priorities. What are your priorities? And there are gonna be times when things fall below the line. But your attitude and how you get there and communicating that with those that fall below the line, whether it's people, finances, or a creditor, is the communication to manage your expectations on that. So that's how I address those.
Thank you. Thank you, Tony. And how about you, Jenny?
Yeah, I guess I'll share a personal story. So many chapters ago in my life, I went through a divorce and I was a victim of domestic violence. And during that time, he took everything, right? He took my money and left me with barely anything. He took the car overnight, and it was, like you said, divorce can be like horrible, right? It's brutal. And at that time, I wanted to honestly, I wanted to end my life, you know? And because I just felt like, okay, how could this have happened to me? That's when it took a lot of time and many years before I really understood that financial independence is so important, regardless if you're in a relationship or not, because the only relationship that you're truly accountable for is yourself, right? And sometimes the greatest setbacks are also the greatest comebacks. And so the biggest thing that I feel, solidifies this is just being able to have financial resilience in learning and adjusting to whatever comes your way, right?
Excellent. Well, I want to hear one more time from the numbers nerd.
That'd be me.
About investing. It's something that many people maybe are a little bit scared of, but they know they should be doing it. And what are some smart and accessible ways that professionals and business owners can start investing, even if they feel like they don't have enough to begin?
Good question. And I started with the acronym I learned a long time ago, FEAR, false evidence appearing real. You want to write that one
Okay,
down?
that's another nugget. False evidence appearing real
is what fear can be. So we have, depending on how you learn, how you process information, there's a plethora of tools. If you're a self-starter and you can go on to Robinhood and Acorn, and even if you do $5 a month, a little bit now is worth so much more than a lot later because of the compounding and you won't really miss it. It'll take you a second and then you won't miss it. If you're self-employed or a small employer, there's legislation coming down that's going to require you to offer retirement plans to your employees. It's still in the works, but that's legislatively. I won't go down that road. But we have places like Edward Jones, and there's several Edward Jones representatives in the chamber for you to speak with. And much like your doctor or your accountant, find the person that vibes with you and have those conversations, 1 or 2 or 3 questions. Then there's also financial peace. I've taught that for many years, Dave Ramsey, in how you go through finances and how do you invest your money. I started investing with what I know, which, back in the day, because I'm a person of a certain age, it was Johnson & Johnson. Everybody uses some Johnson & Johnson. So if Johnson & Johnson's doing, and so I put a little bit of money there and started. And I've never missed that money, and it has continued to grow. And as I check in for my estate planning and things of that nature, I'm like, wow, that little bit it just kept growing over there. And when you hear the stock market's up 5 or down 500 or doing this, it's all paper loss. It means nothing to you. It means absolutely nothing. And I learned that back in 2008 when we had a market crash and all bank stocks hit the floor. Whoosh. And I'm like, oh, my money's gone. And our boss walked around and took all of our 401k slips, our statements that came in our quarterlies. We are not having a bad day. It's just paper, and threw it away, right? And so you have people that will say, oh, a marriage license, it's just paper. Oh, it's just paper. It's like, well, it's paper we chase every single day. And so you want to be good stewards of it. And so your knowledge of it and demanding of yourself. And that's where, again, it comes back to your budget. So when someone says, oh, hey, do you want to invest in a small business or donate to a nonprofit? Well, you know what your capacity is to do that. So we have guidelines about 30% for your housing or 10% for this, but it's really what's important to you and what you want your future to look like on that side. So you can start online with a few, and I use Robinhood because it's user-friendly in that sense. But then if you want that one-to-one, you find a financial coach, you find an accountability partner. And they don't have to be a numbers nerd to be an accountability partner. Just someone who says, this is what you said you wanted to do, did you do it? I've had my accountability partner sitting over here for 15 years now. She's not even gonna look at me. That's all right. I know. I'm gonna look over here. But it's about keeping you accountable to what you said you wanted to do. And when you get weak and you're like, yeah, it's just a Twinkie, they're like, does that get you back to where you want to be? And so that's where I start off with those investments, is a little bit now. It could be, I think Robinhood starts literally at $5 a month. A little bit now makes a way for a better future.
Kind of puts me in mind of the mustard seed.
It's the mustard
It's
seed.
the mustard seed.
Yes.
Excellent. Ginny, would you like to take that as well?
Yeah, a lot of what you shared was very similar to you guys. It really just starts with just small investments and being consistent with it, right? Maybe just investing in something, even as little as what you were saying, and then just don't even think about it, right? Especially, and I think it's so important to also set short-term and long-term goals. So that way you know about how much of your money that you need access to sooner than later, and then what you can invest in that you can tap into later and not have to look at.
Michelle, would you like to take it, Michelle?
Yeah. Really quickly, just from an organizational standpoint or employer standpoint, what an organization invests in should be connected to their mission and their equity statement. You should be able to see the money grow throughout the organization, but it should be centered and rooted in the values of that organization. And so many organizations may have endowments, right? Where you have persons that have given to the organization and they want to make sure that there's a specific need and it's going to that need. You still have to make sure the organization is doing it. And so when we talk about investments, we should be making sure that the money goes where it goes and you're tracking that money, but also that you can see the return on that investment and continue to pour it out into the community.
Excellent, thank you so much. I'm curious about monetizing your skills and side hustles, and Carmen, you're the one that I want to hear from, because I know.
I'm cheap. I feel like I'm really cheap talking. Where do I want to start with this? When you look at where you spend your time and spend your money, rethink that to, is this an investment that's going to give me the return I'm looking for? Whether it's family, whether it's business. The example I'll use is I always, as a parent, wanted to give my children good memories that they could laugh about and speak together in therapy when they got older. That was the goal. And so, thank you for your support. And so, you know, daughters, we love the zoo. The zoo for 4 people is gonna be $100 plus the drive time, plus this, plus that. And we can laugh about this now because I said, oh, we're gonna go to the free zoo today. And the free zoo was Petco. Because at Petco, you can play with the dog and the cat, you can feed the snake, you can talk to the fish for free. Right, yes? You can spend 2 or 3 hours there, walk over to McDonald's, Dairy Queen, get a Slurpee, walk home, 5 hours later, they're still tired, they're asleep. We're all done for $22.95. We're not $200 in. I had to look at my priorities. We can't sit in this house and be sad. When they got older, one of my daughters says, were we poor? Yes, baby, we're poor. Yeah, she says, it depends on what you look at. But the goal around making those prioritize, valuing who you are and monetizing what you do is your priorities. So I go with, I give what I need. I give time. So if we're talking one-on-one, I give you my time because I need time from someone or something else. I may not know who it is. And then you leverage that up. If you're taking notes, can you write this down? 253-579-4538 is my cell number. If you want to talk about your finances, if you want someone to feedback to, if you think you have a business opportunity you want to just flesh out with someone who knows numbers and likes it and gets into the nitty-gritty and nerdy, I'm here for you. It's not my waist size. 253-579-4538. As a banker, I don't get paid until I close a deal. But I will lay the seeds out there and look forward to coming back. And so one of my volunteer opportunities that I've engaged in is helping people with their taxes. They get all squishy and squirmy. Last night, this lady comes in and she's just nervous Nelly. She's like, I just hope I don't have to owe. I hope I get a little bit back. I hope. She was a DoorDash driver, and she says, they said I made $20,000. And I says, well, we're gonna talk about all your expenses to get to that. And by the time we got done, her tax refund, including her Washington Cares credit, was $10,100. And she just looked and cried. I said, you want a hug, don't you? You just love me today. But that's my gift that I then monetize, because then she's like, well, you know what? Would you mind helping, or would you mind calling? Would you? And it opens other doors. So that's how I, as a financial service person, am able to monetize. I offer to speak. I offer to extend myself. That's how I walk through this, but that fits my personality bent, it fits my passions, and it fits my heart.
So her number is 253-579-4538, okay? And she's serious. She's serious. What I want to say from an employer standpoint is that we often seek outside of our organization for skills when they're sitting right in the organization. When we talk about monetizing, but looking at the skill set, one of the most impactful things that have happened in my life is to support those brilliant women at that table, because when I met them, they were not in the roles that they're in today. Many of them weren't. It's about seeing the people who you currently work with and asking them, what do you want to be when you grow up? You can be 55, 65, 45 and still ask that question. Ask the people that are in front of you before you walk out the door and pay for an additional salary that has medical benefits on top of it. You may have the person right at your front desk. You may have the person that's been doing the mail. You may have the person who's been adminning you the entire time and have no idea they want to be a practitioner. Look at the people who are around you who have not been given the shot to just be asked a relevant question of who do you want to be when you grow up? How can I help you? 253, right? How can I help you? If your employer has not asked you, you tell them. And if they're not interested, then it looks like what Dee said. That is not sitting well with me. What do I need to do to shift so I can be good for me, which means to my family? It's about harm and not inflicting harm on yourself or on anybody else.
Thank you so much. Do we have time for just the very last? It's our one tip. So one tip, and this speed round, ladies, speed round. One tip. If you could give the audience one financial tip that will set them up for long-term success, what would it be? Go.
My one tip would be pay yourself first and invest consistently.
Know your priorities and move accordingly.
My team knows this. See it, say it, do it.
Excellent. Thank you so much, ladies. I really appreciate you being here, and especially Nichelle stepping up at the last moment to step in with. Thank you. Will you join me in giving them all a great round of applause?
Okay, well, we are almost at the end, and we are going to raise our glasses today to being women who care about one another, women who support one another, hardworking, God-fearing, authentic women that we are. We thank you for being here as a chamber, and we thank our male allies for being here as well. We appreciate you all. So toast to all the good things in your life and all the good things you have now and all the good things to come. Cheers to you.
Cheers.